This is Project White House 2012, brought to you by the Tucson Weekly and Access Tucson Community Media.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Tucson Weekly, Access Tucson, Project White House, Dark Horse Presidential Candidate Twitter Debate. I'm Dave Maass, your moderator for tonight's forum, featuring lesser-known candidates in the Republican presidential primary that Arizona voters will decide on February 28th. Joining me to question the candidates, University of Arizona journalism student Amanda Hurley. But we'll also be taking your questions via Twitter, so if you have something you'd like to ask the candidates, send it to @PWH2012. The candidates in tonight's debate are part of Project White House, a reality journalism competition sponsored by the Tucson Weekly. As part of Project White House, these candidates have been working to win the votes of Arizonans, as well as the endorsement of the Tucson Weekly, through a variety of challenges. You can learn more about them at projectwhitehouse2012.com. We'd like to take a moment to thank the staff here at Access Tucson for all their hard work in helping us put this debate together, including creating a replica of Ronald Reagan's Oval Office, which can be found at the Reagan Library in Simi Valley, California. And now, let's introduce you to the candidates. Al Dick Perry is a local singer-songwriter known for his albums Lose in Hand and Always a Pleasure. Mr. Perry said he decided to seek the presidency because, in his words, somebody has to run. Mr. Perry wants to bring jobs back to America, reduce the power of corporations, and push for campaign finance reform. He also wants to encourage Americans to rock. Sarah Gonzalez is the only Latina on the Republican ballot. She'd like to end all wars, spend more money on education, crack down on white-collar crime, and demolish the border wall. She says she's pretty sure her platform makes more sense than Herman Cain's 999 plan. Ms. Gonzalez is also a poet who works with youth and is an accomplished karaoke performer. Peter Simon Bollander is founder of the World's Masterminds, an organization dedicated to solving critical problems facing mankind. He is also an art collector, a former limo driver, and a self-proclaimed people person. Mr. Bollander wants to institute an Uncle Sam's sweepstakes to solve the nation's budget problems, create more fish farms, and move all of the country's prisoners to an island where they could learn to live with one another. Jim Terr is a satirist from New Mexico who decided to run for president because he had nothing better to do between now and November. Mr. Terr wants to take back America from whoever has possession of it these days and to bribe his way into office so he can institute campaign finance reform. Although he plans to take his campaign all the way to the convention, he vows that, if nominated, he will not run. Donald Benjamin is an academic advisor in Maricopa County who has called for Congress to be sent home for 2 years while a junta of 6th graders runs the country. He also wants to simplify government paperwork and has called for better organization in grocery stores. Kip Dean is a healthcare administrator who finds that most of the presidential candidates are really unlikable, so he felt he would offer himself as an alternative. He wants to engage more Americans in politics, reduce the influence of lobbyists, and make stuff better. Charles Skelley is a semi-retired engineer who first ran for president in 2008. He wants to implement a 1-2-3 plan to fix the nation's economy. He wants to improve the manufacturing base and restore the economic fundamentals of Adam Smith's invisible hand of the marketplace. Thank you, candidates, for joining us here tonight. It's good to have you. The first question we have is a bit of an introduction. To us, being a president requires a lot of poise. It requires you to face down adversaries in random situations that happen to you. What I want to know, and we're going to start with Mr. Perry over here on the left and work all the way across. Let's say you landed on the tarmac in an airport and an Arizona governor ran up to you and stuck a finger in your face. What would you do?
Well, Well, I will tell you right now, the chances are if the Arizona governor ran up to me, our present Arizona governor, I'd have my finger in her face long before she'd have hers in mine.
Wonderful.
Well, that's an interesting question. I think I would maybe just check, see if she was okay. She wasn't kind of falling apart, or it seemed like she might be losing her mind a little bit. Offer her some care, and maybe teach her a little bit of manners. That's probably a good idea.
Thank you. Simon, there's a finger in your face. What do you do?
First of all, I would analyze the situation before I proceeded in any sort of conversation. I would find what the intent was with the finger pointed to my face. Then I would proceed thereof.
Mr. Terr.
I would hope that my Secret Service would take her down. Any kind of aggressive act like that would be met with strong force. I wouldn't have to deal with it directly.
Mr. Benjamin.
My reaction would depend entirely on which finger we're talking about.
Let's say it's the index finger.
If it's the index finger, I'd ask, and can you also count to 2?
Very good. Mr. Dean.
I'd calmly, and knowing her well enough that I've been being in this state, she is going to do something very stupid anyway. So just watch and let it happen, and hopefully it derails her, because that's what I'm hoping for.
Charles, in 2008, you actually stood next to Governor Brewer when she was Secretary of State during the drawing for the presidential ballot. What would you do if she put her finger in your face?
Well, what I found was she was very civil in 2008, so I think something must have changed her. And I would, try to find out what's going on.
Wonderful, thank you. We're gonna start off the serious questions with the economy. Big problem. Economy, it's miserable. Charles, you have laid out an extensive plan about what you would do to fix the economy. Give us the brief version of it.
Well, our problem basically is that the country is short on working capital to own equipment within the manufacturing base. So I would make certain that we put more capital equipment in all of our manufacturers. Not like Solyndra where you choose one, instead like the Adam Smith's invisible hand, you push money into every corporation simultaneously, somewhat equally. It's what FDR did in World War II.
Jim, I'm going to come to you next. Can you do better than that?
I doubt that I can do better than him since he knows something about the economy, and I don't really. All I think is that way too much money is going into, quote, defense. In case anybody doesn't know, the U.S. spends more on defense, quote, defense, than all the other countries in the world combined, approximately equal amount, including China. And I would like to see that reduced substantially and see what money we have left over for other programs.
Mr. Perry, do you have a thought on this?
I do. A very large part of this problem is that this country does not make anything anymore. We've outsourced all of our jobs to foreign countries because exploiting foreign workers cuts costs and increases profits. There's something called the corporate charter, which states a mandate that a corporation must produce a profit at all costs or risk being sued by its shareholders. If we abolish this, I think we could make some serious steps. 60 years ago, outsourcing jobs to China would have been unheard of, and it should be the same way now.
Sarah?
I agree with Dick.
Do you have anything to add to it?
I think in general, I'm not an economics, I don't have expertise in economics, but I think that corporations are just kind of out of control. And if you look at how corporations are run, they follow the DSM definitions for mental illness. And so we really have to start there and looking at that, and this whole capitalistic, everybody out for themselves, it's really going to end up toppling our system, and then we're going to be in a hell of a situation.
So you're saying corporations are mentally ill?
Yes, they are.
Mr. Dean, corporations, do they have a mental health issue?
Yeah. The last time I checked, I've never been able to talk to a corporation itself. A corporation can't do anything. It's not a being, and I think it's time for Washington to understand that and not just kowtow to the folks with the big money.
Does anybody actually like corporations on this panel? Mr. Bollander.
Yes, I think the corporate structure is the backbone for the American system, or the capitalistic society. The problem is the corporations don't have any guidance which is directed from our Congress. Our Congress is undermanned as far as knowledge They're mostly 70% are lawyers or attorneys. Would you ask a plumber to fix a car engine? We can't have lawyers in Congress directing corporate, the general public, and so forth to direct our economy. We have a runaway budget, which is $3 billion a day, just interest. It's really bad, and it's going to get worse. We have to replace Congress with apt people who can do their jobs, such as economists, marketing, business people, and that nature.
All right, but if you're elected president, there's still going to be this, the Congress that's elected at the end of the year.
No, I have it carefully thought out. We would go ahead of time to the universities of Arizona. We create awareness programs. The awareness, I already have a program called the Green Coalition, and it's prepared to spread the word through universities to put aside the top talent and try to get Congress to produce laws or amendments, anything to get it going, structured. You have to get the word out before anything happens. But I do believe within a 4-year period, these changes can be made.
Does anybody have a response to that? Mr. Benjamin?
Well, I agree with everything that's been said. However,
There's some contradictory remarks up there.
I don't believe corporations are people. I don't believe money is speech. I think that economics and mythology classes should be combined at the university. That would be a good cost-saving measure.
I'm going to give Mr. Terr the last word, and then we're going to move on to Amanda for the next question.
I really disagree strongly with what seems to be the context of Simon's comment. I can't see any reason that anybody would agree to let so-called experts that he thinks are experts run anything in favor of elected officials. So that's about 8 objections and questions I have to his plan that people he thinks are experts, and in general, that people think are experts should run things. There's a procedure and there's a consensus.
Simon, brief response.
Brief response. Jim, you're right and wrong. Wrong to effect is
Mostly
that
right.
Economists are not politicians. We need intelligent people to create laws, to pass articles, everything inside what Congress, their responsibility is about. And that's not happening. You have a runaway budget because they're not knowledgeable to create an effective budget.
Okay, I'm going to pass this on to Amanda.
Absolutely. We asked our viewers to provide their own questions for the candidates via Twitter. My first question is going to go to Mr. Perry. It comes from Stephen Elliott, who is a blogger at Village Voice Media's Toke of the Town. The question states, 16 states and D.C. allow the medical use of marijuana, but President Obama has begun a federal crackdown. What would you do about pot?
Well, I just would like everybody to know that the Beach Boys are opening their tour in Tucson on April 24th with 5 original members. That's what I'd like to say about that.
Do you feel that will solve our
Solve a lot of problems for me.
Perfect.
Sarah?
It's very interesting. I think we talked a little bit about it last night about drug policies and who they're affecting, and going after marijuana. I think it's a waste of resources. So I think we should legalize it. It's medicine. It doesn't kill people. It's not a gateway drug. There's a lot of misinformation, like a lot of things that we talk about. They're going after it for reasons, and then using fear, like in many other situations, as a way to get people to be afraid of it and to say that it's crazy and disastrous.
Jim, do you have a position?
I just agree with the more progressive people on pot, like our former governor, Gary Johnson, who has the courage to say that who's running for president, who has the courage to say that it's ridiculous. If anybody can demonstrate there's anything more wrong with pot than alcohol, I'd like to hear about it. But meanwhile, very few politicians have the courage, other than him, as far as I know, to say that it should be decriminalized. And I don't smoke pot, and I haven't in about 40 years, so I don't have a personal position on it. But I just think it's a waste of prison and people's lives and freedom to imprison people for pot. It's ridiculous.
Let me go to Mr. Benjamin first before going to you, Simon.
I believe the only reason that marijuana is illegal is they don't have a lobby. Look at the alcohol lobby. Alcohol kills many more people than marijuana, and yet it's a legal drug, and it's a drug that's supported by lobbyists.
Mr. Bollander?
Yeah. First, we got to do a reality check. A reality check took me about 3 years ago The cartel runs the profits on marijuana. They're making forth billions and billions and billions. Why doesn't that money come to us as far as our budget, create an effective system to derive income, be more productive if we legalized it? And 3 years ago told me we're going to bring about 30 to 40 billion dollars into our economy. So it'd be most effective if we did legalize marijuana.
Okay, great. Thank you. My next question is for all of the candidates. Congressional candidate Martha McSally said on Friday that she wanted to kick Rick Santorum in the jimmy. Is there any politician that you would like to kick in the jimmy? Would you, by show of hands, kick Rick Santorum in the jimmy?
What's a Jimmy?
That's an excellent. It's the male anatomy.
Oh, all right.
Anyone?
Hey, show of hands.
I would think anybody that doesn't have a Jimmy would want to. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's two of the 7.
Two?
Yeah.
All right. What about Mr. Skelley? Is there anyone that any politician that you would like to kick in the jimmy?
Yes, of course. We're Republicans. I think President Obama would be a good candidate.
Yes.
Excuse me, I have a point of order. I think that one of the candidates here is receiving some information through an earpiece. In fact, I think there's
I resent that.
a device back here.
I resent your implication, and please mind your own business.
Mr.
matter of
Terr,
fact-
I think that's got to be some kind. I mean, I've got no cards.
Mr. Terr, can we see your ears? Can you turn?
My ears are,
I don't
He's
see
got-
anything.
stay away from my back and whatever
It could be a
apparatus I
medical
may
device.
have.
I'm
You
not.
too.
I'm not
Can we
inclined
continue
to.
with this debate?
Yeah, I'm not
please?
inclined to do a pat down at this point.
I don't have it, Jimmy, but I wouldn't want to get that close to Santorum.
Is there anybody else you'd like to kick in the jimmy?
I'm pretty much anti-violent. Well, 99% anti-violence.
Anybody else want to ring out on this?
Obama?
Obama? A lot of Obamas in the jimmy. So,
Well, I don't know. I always thought that, if I got to meet George Bush, maybe I'd like to just spit in his face. But
senior or
realistically,
junior?
I just thought that. I would never do it. If I met George Bush, the politician that I probably hate most out of all, I would go up and respectfully shake his hand and use decorum and say, hello, Mr. Bush, it's a pleasure to meet you. Even though in here, I'd have a big loogie.
wonderful. I'd like to move on to the next question, if that's okay. Mr. Benjamin, Mr. Bollander has laid out his plan for how he'd like to change Congress. In your plan, you call for removing everyone from Congress, sending them home. You say you will veto any law they try to pass until they fix the old laws. You said you will replace all of the Senate with sixth graders, I believe. Is bringing Congress to a standstill really the answer to fix America?
I think you'd have to ask Congress, since they brought themselves to a standstill. The sixth graders at least have taken the civics class, and they understand compromise, they understand discussion, and obviously our congressmen and congresswomen don't understand that.
Mr. Dean, sending Congress home, is that an answer?
I think it's important to have the three arms of the government. I think Congress is there. I just think they've done an incredibly lousy job, and I think as Donald said, they've kind of stopped themselves. Tea Party came along and wouldn't compromise and stopped there. And I think it's time that hopefully with the upcoming election, Tea Party goes away and we go on to something probably equally as bad. But I'm hoping that people will look around, start voting, start paying attention, and coming here and electing something better.
Sarah, I would like to ask you, what is your take on the makeup of Congress right now?
The makeup, well, there's not a lot of makeup happening in Congress right now. I think the issue of women in politics is one that really needs to be looked at, and it really needs to be changed. And going along with what these folks are saying, we need more people to run. We need more people to believe that you can really run and make a difference. A lot of people just don't run. A lot of women don't run, and the system is set up for that. And I think a lot of Congress is out of touch. You can't have 51% of your population be female and have such low representation, and that's why you end up having having hearings without women about birth control issues. So I think that's part of the reason I ran, is to say, it's not that far. It might be a silly gesture, but it's not that far. I'm actually on the ballot. So maybe more women, more people of color will start running locally and nationally.
So not only are you the only woman up here on this panel, you're also, I'm going to guess, the youngest on the panel. You know, Mr. Benjamin says 6th graders should be in Congress. Is there an age problem in Congress?
Yeah, you know, just in general, diversity really is our strength and our power, and we always shy away from it. So age-wise, gender-wise, race-wise, socioeconomic-wise, all those things really need to come together. So it's not saying men are bad or rich people are bad. It's like the lack of diversity that's really the issue. So 6th graders, I'm all for that because I work with young people and they know what's up and they have important things to say. And so again, I've had people come up to me and say, I wouldn't trust somebody who looks as young as you to run the country. And I think, well, the people who've done it before are much older and they haven't really done a bang-up job. So,
Mr. Bollander,
A reality check again.
reality check.
It's
Real talk.
not gender, it's not color, it's not race. The problem is Congress doesn't have the knowledge. I must say it over and over and over again. People don't take it in. Our Congress is not educated. They're educated by law books, reading law books, passing, have congressional hearings, passing laws. That's what they're there for. They're not there to adjust the budget, create new ideas, concepts, create whatever it takes to run a government. They're not trained for that. And we have people who are bad in what they're doing. Look, reality check. Look at the budget. It's runaway. It's horrible. Charles can really comment. He has good stats and numbers on it.
I do want to go to Charles next. Can I give you another, do you have an opinion on this, or can I give you a new question?
Well, I'll let you be the decision maker.
Okay, I'll give you a new question if that's all right.
Okay.
Changing the subject quite a bit here. Recently, PETA, the People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, sued SeaWorld in federal court, arguing that they were enslaving killer whales. Should orcas receive citizen status?
I don't see why they would. They have an IQ that's pretty decent, probably as strong as a congressman. But I don't think that they could pass a 6th grade civics class.
Kip, not Kip. Sorry, my apologies. Al Dick Perry.
You know what's funny is I saw that on the Jon Stewart show, and I didn't see it on the mainstream media, and I thought that whole thing was some big joke, you know. And the same day they had a whole thing on how Congress is now able to engage in insider trading, and you know the rest of us are not allowed to engage in, which I also have not seen on the. And I thought that was a joke until I asked Nintzel about it. He's like, no, that's the real deal. So, you know, I don't have much of an opinion on the animals thing. I think that's kind of a side issue, but I really thought that was a big joke, and I didn't know that was true.
Mr. Dean, corporations, they have, people status to an extent. What about orcas?
You know, you just took my thunder. Yeah, I would much rather spend time with an orca than Exxon, and I think I'd get brighter conversation with an orca than a faceless giant conglomeration that is buying the government.
Mr. Skelley had said that orcas would not have the same education or the same level of intellect as a 6th grader. 6th graders figure into your plan, Mr. Benjamin. Would orcas work?
Well, I think that the thing that 6th graders and orcas have in common are, I forgot the question. What was the question?
You're not asking
Sorry,
me, are you?
sorry. Is there room for orcas in your vision of Congress,
I'm having
seeing
my-
as 6th graders do?
I guess I don't have an opinion on that. The 6th graders really it was done with, of course, a lot of levity, essentially to say that what Congress needs is some civility.
Wonderful.
And I think the killer whales are organized in a pod system, and Congress could probably learn from that, whatever that means.
Orcas should not get citizenship status because then you couldn't eat them, and they're very tasty, as put forth by PETA, people eating tasty animals. So.
That is quite the bombshell there.
They also sink, too.
They also sink, too. Okay. I'm going to go back to Amanda for the next question.
Yes. One of Rick Santorum's advisors suggested that women should hold an aspirin between their knees as a form of birth control. Should the federal government provide aspirin to women as contraceptive under Obamacare? Mr. Bollander?
did you say aspirin
Aspirin
for birth control?
between their knees
And women should put aspirin between their knees?
as a form of birth control.
Well, I don't see how that would work, since birth control, the devices they use are mechanical and also orally through pills right now, correct?
Correct.
And you're going to take aspirin and put it between a woman's leg,
Betwixt the thighs, yes.
her thighs. Well, I would see maybe it would block the male from entering.
If she has to hold it
But it
there,
has to be
yeah.
a big aspirin.
Here we go again.
Big aspirin to block the entry, but I don't, see, I'm lost in that question, but I would say to tell you it has to be a big aspirin to block the male from intruding to the
Big
female.
ass aspirin.
Big ass. That's
Big
what I heard.
big ass
aspirin.
aspirin.
He always gets it going.
He always gets to work.
So, in conclusion, you would find it to be ineffective.
Yeah, unless it was
Yes.
large.
Yes. What about you, Mr. Dean?
I think the Republican Party has tried to take us back to the Dark Ages. I think a woman could clutch a rock, a pre-Cambrian rock is what they think. And it's been amazing. I saw that, the picture of the guy sitting there deciding the fate of Planned Parenthood and contraceptive on Capitol Hill the other day was unreal. I think a lot of folks are in touch, and I think Foster Freeze is clearly the poster child for that, and we gotta take this back. Yeah.
I think we should just all get pictures of Rick Santorum to put in our bedrooms and our laundry rooms where we have lots of sex, and that's birth control enough.
To suppress the urges?
Yes.
Yes. Very
Big
good.
deterrent.
I want to stay on the issue of health care. And I was reading over Mr. Bollander and Ms. Gonzalez's positions on health care, and they seemed rather similar in a way. They both involved a trade-off between military and healthcare, if I'm not mistaken. Sarah, could you tell us about yours first, and then I'll go to Simon for his.
Military and healthcare?
Yeah, was there not a trade-off from taking money from one
Yeah.
to give to the other?
Yeah, I think we have inordinate amount of money being spent on defense and homeland security, and our education is going down. And I think honestly, what Congress, I guess, is not understanding is that when you have education that's so low, it's gonna, again, you're taking the pillars out from a structure, so it's gonna fall apart. And you're gonna have all this money for military. That's just, it's exorbitant, and it's ridiculous. You're gonna have a bunch of sick people, a bunch of lowly educated folks. It just doesn't make any sense.
Simon, tell us about your healthcare plan.
I'd like to really read Sarah's health plan. I wasn't aware of that.
It's only
But-
one sentence long.
Oh, all right. But in my case, we must analyze again the system where our needs are, and our needs are healthcare, needs for healthcare for the poor, especially in America. In Canada, in some of the northern European nations, they have very effective healthcare, but it's managing only a few million people, where we had 300, 400 million people we're managing. So in our case, I was looking at to do it inexpensively, and as part of my 10-star program, is to take the first, was free healthcare, is taking military bases and our regional bases. I think there's roughly 102 bases vacant, Air Force, Army, blah, blah, blah. And we go in there, effectively produce a barrack-style hospital, barracks. No carpet, just tile floors, everything cheap, no elevators, one floor, no odd objects, but inexpensive. Everything is volunteer basis, be like Access, but effectively you would have inexpensive health care that could be done on a regional basis for the American public that are in need.
Mr. Perry, do you have a healthcare plan?
I think the single-payer plan is absolutely essential for the future of this country. Every other civilized nation in the world has this. If we just stopped being the world's bully, started being a citizen of the world, we could easily pay for this. All right?
Mr. Skelley.
One more thing.
Sorry.
One thing that I also don't see in the media, you always hear about Obamacare, and they're making it look like it's going to be a single-payer plan. It is not. It is the plan where it's a mandate that in 2014, we are going to be required to buy health insurance. I'm still seeing this in the complicit media. And so I just wanted to get that out there. It's kind of sidestepping the thing, but it's just something that really gets under my skin.
So we're hearing for free health care and universal health care from a lot of Republican candidates here, which is fairly unusual. Mr. Skelley, you're an Adam Smith guy. What would Adam Smith feel we should do about health care?
Well, one of our problems, our major problems in this country, as I put into my 1, 2, 3 plan, is that if you take 1998 as a starting point and go up to the present, we have fewer jobs right now in the private sector minus healthcare than we did in 1998. We also have 42 million more citizens who are actual official citizens. So we've created no new jobs in the private sector. They've all gone into healthcare and government. And one of those two has got to be shrunk.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to go to, oh, sorry, Mr. Terr, please, I didn't mean to miss you.
I wanted to underline what Al said and almost said or didn't say, but, he mentioned that all other most major civilized countries in Northern Europe and Europe have universal health care. And I just think there's a larger issue that we don't look, or we're too proud to look, or we're too good to look, or too exceptional to look at what's happened in the other countries of the world, what they've done, what they can do, what can be done. It's like we're a special case, and there's even an anti-relativist attitude, you might say, that if it's done somewhere else, I'm not interested. Let's see what we can do in America. We're starting with a blank slate, and we couldn't have universal health care because it works everywhere else, and it's socialist or it stinks or something. And I just think that's an underlying attitude that applies to a lot of our problems and possible solutions.
Thank you. In terms of problems and solutions, we're going to go to another question from Twitter, I believe.
Yes, indeed. This next question comes from Jennifer, who is a coordinator at the San Diego Zombie Walk. She asks, where do the candidates stand on potential zombie outbreak the terrorists are planning to make happen this coming December? Mr. Dean, do you have a position?
I really liked Michael Jackson's gang dance. Yeah,
Do you feel that would be effective in case of an attack?
absolutely.
If we can organize them in a friendly manner?
Yeah, a little bit of Thriller.
A little
Yeah,
thriller?
yeah.
Can you do the thriller?
Oh, I'd have to try to get this whole table, and that would be impossible the way we're close.
Let's steer away from that.
Yeah, all right.
Who else, in order to protect national security from zombies, has an idea to deal with this problem?
I have kind of an urgent announcement. I keep out of the corner of my eye in the windows back here seeing some sort of jerky movement. So I'm wondering if are we safe here? Is the door locked or?
I
It's just like
believe
glass.
We're never entirely safe.
No, but
Oh, that's
but
Nicely said.
Nicely said.
I did
but-
have trouble getting into the building earlier, so I believe there is
Okay.
adequate
'Cause
zombie
there's
protections
just
at the
like
moment.
This, zombies, is this in Washington DC in Congress?
No, I believe
Looking at
this
Congress?
would be a potentially global epidemic.
All worldwide. I thought it was in Congress in Washington DC.
I think zombies have rights too. I think we're vilifying them and we're calling them terrorists already. I mean, this is what we do, and this is why it's ridiculous, and this is why we need an overhaul of government, because zombies have feelings too, I'm sure of it.
So it's a problem of ignorance.
It is. Always fear, always ignorance.
So
Viva la zombies! How do you say that?
do you would you be supportive of zombies retaining the right to vote?
Hell yeah.
Anybody else? That's a bit of a shocker.
I would not let a zombie vote.
No.
I think that
Raise your hand.
death
Who-
should not disqualify you from voting.
Exactly. They're undead.
should a zombie have the right to vote? Please, by show of hands.
So yes would be.
3 out of 7,
If they can show a birth certificate.
if they can show a birth
birth
certificate. Well, thank you very much. I believe Amanda has another question.
Sure, yes. Mr. Benjamin, you have called for a standardized organization of grocery stores. What is your concern with stores, and is this a federal issue?
Absolutely. You go into a grocery store. Every time you go into a grocery store anywhere in this country, the vegetables and fruit should always be on the right. The frozen food should be dead ahead. The drug stuff should be over here. Why should it be different? You spend more time in a grocery store, seriously, looking for an item. Think of what we could do with that time. We could develop a healthcare system.
We could
Please,
We could cure-
maintain
we
some
could
decorum.
cure OCD,
Maintain
by
some
the way.
decorum, please. Does anybody here feel like this is an appropriate discussion topic for the presidency?
No.
I think if marijuana was legalized right now, we might not be having this conversation.
Simon.
I think marijuana, even though I support the legalization, I don't support mass use with little kids, and so it must be really regulated with doctors and controls and so forth before the general public get involved.
I'm
think
not
all
sure how
children-
this
But you
relates
have
to
some
supermarkets.
experts to
Excuse me.
figure that
So
all out.
are we
right?
selling the marijuana in the supermarkets,
Now
and they
we're
need to
getting
show
somewhere.
identification then?
Now
I
we're-
think
In
to
the
the
schools.
pharmacy in the supermarket.
Kindergarten.
I'm sorry, please go ahead.
Oh, no.
Sorry, Ms. Gonzalez.
No, I got caught up on his mass dispensers to children. I thought that was maybe that was a good idea. We could stop using Benadryl to get them to go to sleep. I don't have any children. I'm just
Maybe
kidding.
they'd eat their vegetables if they had the munchies.
Vegetable for president. You need to run.
Mr. Skelley, is this a distraction?
The grocery stores or
This
the
grocery
marijuana?
store as a federal issue.
The grocery stores, in my opinion, is a distraction. Yes.
Mr. Dean.
This is unbelievable.
Zombies in grocery store smoking pot. I guess I'm okay with it. I guess somehow.
I think that would make the quality of life for zombies much better.
Let me ask you a different question. Mr. Dean, you're a Republican. Would Chuck Norris have a place in your cabinet? And if not, do you have another action star in mind?
Chuck Norris replaced my cabinet. My son's going to kill me, but probably not. Yeah. But I always kind of like The Rock. Yeah.
What would that position in your cabinet be?
Let's say HUD.
HUD?
HUD.
The Rock?
Yeah.
In charge of HUD?
Yep.
Gotcha. Mr. Bollander, Chuck Norris.
Great guy. I don't know where he would fit in.
No? Do you have anybody else in mind?
I would probably say, there's multiples I would use, but I probably stand out more in my mind would be somebody who I really adore, is ex-president Bill Clinton.
Okay. Mr. Perry, I'm going to come to you, and I'm going to, Chuck Norris, he's definitely a very strong conservative. I think he's also very strong on gun rights. Well, would you have a place for him in your cabinet?
I'm pretty clueless about who Chuck Norris is. I've never seen a Chuck Norris
Karate.
movie. I can't picture in my mind what he even looks like. I might take Clint Eastwood, I might take Gene Hackman, but Chuck Norris is kind of outside of my sphere. I watch movies that have subtitles and black and white and Billy Wilder and things like that. So Chuck Norris is
No
off the
Chuck
table,
Norris
baby.
for
Chuck
Mr.
Norris
Perry.
is crazy. Chuck Norris is a sorry, I just managed to say he's crazy, but he's crazy. He's a very right-wing conservative, and it's just another example of who has the education, who has the expertise, because people love Chuck Norris, but they love him for being an actor and because there's a lot of jokes about him that are really cool.
Yeah,
but,
the jokes are good.
Yeah, the jokes are good, but does that qualify him to be a political office and to have political ideology? And a lot of people from across the spectrum love him, but they should really know what his politics are.
Mr. Terr.
I'd take him on.
Yes.
Mr. Terr, wait. Is a roundhouse kick enough to earn you a place in the White House?
Let me answer my own way, and that is that you've almost touched on something that almost interests me in one of the responses down here, and that was with regard to guns. And I think this country is, if I'm not too far off topic from Chuck Norris and zombies, I think this country is a little bit overarmed and a little bit too gun nutty. And I've discussed this with a lot of people, including gun nuts, who think that's the most important thing in life, and the Second Amendment as they interpret it. And I think that there is something, talk about psychotic about this country, and that so many people are so concerned about guns and people taking their guns away and being able to carry guns and who's going to shoot them with guns. I just want to go on record with that. I think this is a nutball country in that respect, and I'm uncomfortable living here and in that respect and going into businesses that allow people to carry guns even if they're allowed to and supposedly level-headed.
Can we get a show
Thank
of
you
hands?
very much.
Can we get a show of hands? Who among you actually owns a firearm?
I do, by the way.
How is that not hypocritical?
I'm not concerned with it. I don't even know where they are, and I'm not concerned about carrying them into
You
restaurants.
don't know where they are?
No.
That's almost more dangerous, don't you think?
Yeah, that's what the NRA people say. No, it's not more dangerous. If I can't find them, nobody else can find them. It's very unlikely anybody's going to break into my house, as they describe to me, and get my guns and kill me. That's just an example of that consciousness, with all due respect.
Mr. Bollander.
No, it's not
The
dangerous.
question is, which would you rather have, a bow and arrow or a gun? Gun wins.
Mr. Skelley, bow and
Good
arrow
question.
or a
That's a
gun?
good way to look at it.
Answer the question.
The ancient Egyptians used bows and arrows because they didn't have guns. They were the most advanced civilization on the planet for about 2,000 years. So you got to look at that very seriously, but I would refer it to an expert somewhere in my council rather than making a decision.
Mr. Benjamin, bow and arrow or a gun?
I'm going to answer that question or I'm not going to answer that question because I want to go on record as being totally opposed to guns on campuses.
Are you against bows and arrows on campuses?
I'm against, bows and arrows would be fine.
Thank you.
Just a bow.
Mr. Dean, do you have a...
You know, I live in a state that is trying to put guns in the campuses, and it's a really worrisome thing because I don't think the people on the campus want them. I don't think anybody wants them except for the state government, and I think the state government is being subversed by two great citizens, Smith and Weston. Yeah, so I mean, that bothers me. I don't understand why my state wants more guns for no apparent reason when the citizens don't want them.
Well, mine is a Hello Kitty AK-47, and it's more like an art piece that I sleep with. But I could kill somebody with my bare hands, so I don't really need guns.
I'm going to pass it back to Amanda for the next question.
That was terrifying. But our next question comes from Twitter again. This one comes from Democrab, a Democratic crab. And they say, what steps will you take to stop the mass brainwashing of people by the government via the fluoridification of tap water? Fluoridation, sorry.
Wow.
Who are we going to go to on that?
I'm going to go to Ms. Gonzalez.
I don't think the government's trying to brainwash us. I think the government is good. This water is really good, too.
This is good water.
I like the fluoride in this water. It's
I
very
think I'm
good.
going to drop out of the race because... Done.
There's a comment on that.
Simon, please.
Actually, we're going to laugh at this, but true story, the CIA in the past has used things in water to bring out certain things with certain cultures and people. And it's been instituted mostly overseas.
You don't have to worry about the water. You need to worry about the stuff like crack cocaine and how the government tried to take out all African American people. So, I mean, don't worry about the water. Worry about things that are right in front of your face.
I'm not worried about the water. I just drink it.
Do you use just tap water? Are you okay drinking tap water in America? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, so I'm drinking now. I drink bottled water at home. I don't drink anything out of the faucet.
Mr. Dean.
You know, I do. I take water where it comes from. I mean, I don't think, half a bottle of water is you suddenly got a huge amount of plastic that's never going away.
Right on.
So,
There's an issue.
I'd rather take my chances with water that might not be as chemically safe as something that I have no idea what it is that's going to be in a landfill forever.
Actually, no, this is why I think a lot of us have been hoodwinked. I actually did a project here in Tucson with the contamination of the water on the south side, the TCE contamination, where airplane jet fuel was poured into the south side to communities of color, to poor folks, and then you had all these amazing, especially athletes in high school who were drinking more water, and then 20 years later they're having their jaws removed because of cancer. And it's not something that necessarily gets a lot of national public media, but that crap happens all the time.
Wonderful. I want to change the subject again.
It's not wonderful, Dave.
Wonderful answer.
I don't. Where's that going?
It's a
I got a
wonderful
new
topic,
question.
and let's move on to another one.
As a candidate, I took it that Sarah was throwing at us that it was intentionally done to a certain group that lives on the south side. Is that where you're going?
I could respond to
All right.
that for Sarah, if I may. May I?
Jim Terr.
I mean, there's an issue of, I think it's called, what's the good term for it? I mean, where people who are on the lower end of the economic scale get all the crap dumped in their neighborhood, get polluted. So it's the same globally. What's the term they use for that? Anyway, it's a very serious issue, whether you call it intentional, a master plan, or anything else. The poor people get shat upon in their neighborhoods, get the pollution, get poisoned, and nobody knows who's being poisoned by the things that make money. I'm not concerned with fluoride, I think there's a controversy about that, but I'm concerned about carcinogens and pollutants that get dumped in the poorer neighborhoods, and it's not necessarily anybody who's racist. It's just a matter of class and money.
Why is it a poor people issue?
Because the rich people have more influence to keep things out of their backyard.
Yeah.
I think rich people are entitled to what they do, and they're subject to the same thing as poor people are.
Oh, good.
Anybody have a response to that? Mr. Dean?
Again, if Exxon was here, he'd talk to us about how he feels about that whole thing. Yeah, so, no, there is class here. There's 1%, around 99%, and I mean, I think we got to take some of this back. And you're responsible out there in TV land to go out and vote and go ahead and say you don't like any of these guys, none of them. So, except for these folks up here, most of these fine folks. So, yep.
Well, I would like to change the subject again. I want to go back to Mr. Bollander. You have a plan. I'm going to go on the issue of criminal justice. You have a plan to create a prison island. Is that correct?
Yes, but I thought, in effect, how you introduced it in the beginning was a little off, not off base, but
Please correct me.
wrong direction. The correction is not for prisoners to live among themselves in harmony. The thing is the prisoners not be prisoners or being punished. That they should be rehabilitated when they come in. No jail guards. They would have social workers that are trained with university trained. I think it's psychiatrists and psychologists. You would have them working and to improve the mind of the prisoner. There are many different crimes. You have child molestation, murders, and so forth. So each one has to be treated separately.
Pot smokers.
Separately, please. Have to be treated separately. So it's a big program. It would take a book probably to define it, but just to break it down real fast, the prisoner would come in and leave rehabilitated, hopefully.
Would the death penalty still exist under your plan?
I don't like the death penalty.
Anybody else? Anybody want to defend the death penalty on this panel?
I'm not opposed to death penalty and special, where intent and horrendousness can be clearly proven. I mean, I know so many death penalty opponents who say, but for, what's his name? Who's the Oklahoma City bomber?
Timothy McVeigh.
Timothy McVeigh, that would have been okay. So, don't be hypocritical about it, friends. And I don't have anything against the death penalty for people who have demonstrated that that's what they believe, that life doesn't mean anything.
I'm actually from Oklahoma, and I was living there when the Oklahoma City bombing happened, and it was one of the worst things I've ever experienced to kind of see my community hurt like that, and I still am against the death penalty. And I also think that prison reform is really one of the biggest issues of our generation, of our time right now. It's again, tied into business and who's making money off of it, including immigration detention centers. And if I was president, that's really would be at the forefront, because it's impacting a lot of other things like economics. Felons can't vote, people who are put into prison who shouldn't be there in the first place, all these kinds of things that really impacts, and it's a huge, huge problem, and it really needs to be overhauled.
I'm going to go to
I have
Mr.
a question on Peter's proposal. I've wondered about it since I've read about it. Are these highly educated sociologists who are handling these prisoners on this island, are they also trained in martial arts or something else to protect themselves and protect the other prisoners, or are they just sociologists?
It would take a book to write the program, but
Read the book.
Read the book. But anyway, is getting to his question. I would say it'd be nice to have some sort of defense. It'd be nice, and also. Getting back to the question of McVeigh, before the death penalty, I would weigh out if the person is handicapped with mental illness before you impose the death sentence upon that person.
That's the way our system works, supposedly, already. Yeah.
Nice.
Mr. Skelley, on questionnaires, you have listed that you would select Mr. Bollander as your vice president. Is the prison island something that you would continue under your administration?
Well, I think there's a lot of merit in it. One thing that Simon has told me, I don't know whether it's a secret or not, but he thinks San Francisco is that island. And you can see from the demographics of the whole thing, it would be a good place to put people.
Well, what happens to the people who live in San Francisco now?
I presume they would be bought out. We would just go in with eminent domain, buy the place, and turn it over to the jail people.
Charles, did I say that about Frisco? Are you reading me
As I
right?
said, I heard it at one
No,
point.
no, that's
I
not me
incorrect,
quoting
then
San
I'll stand
Francisco.
corrected.
That'd be a
Pardon me,
bad.
I'd like to chime in.
Yeah, sure, Mr. Perry. You've been quiet for a while.
America incarcerates a greater percentage of its citizens than virtually any country right now, and it's going higher and higher. So why bother spending more money on prisons? Why not spend that money on social programs?
The idea is to
Things
save
like
money, to save money.
With the
Condense-
prisons.
Well, I know that.
To
and I'm
condense
speaking
everything.
here, sir,
All right.
about the death penalty. I do think it is okay in certain cases with absolute certainty. I attended a trial one time and watched somebody receive the death penalty. It was one of the freakiest things I've ever done in my life. I mean, I was just sweating when I came out of there. The atmosphere was so tense. But in certain cases, it is necessary because you can't give back that person's life. So I just wanted to
Mr.
State
Shaw,
my
you mentioned that you wanted to chime in one last time.
Yes, I wanted to comment that I agree with at least the first part of Mr. Perry's comment there. I don't disagree with any part of it, but if you go back to my 2008 program, I wanted to make sure that Congress would reduce the number of people going to jail every year and make it somewhat of a law, a policy, that possibly we change the laws to fit the people instead of putting the people in prison. I think it makes a lot more sense. It's costing way too much to keep people in prison.
It's basically mandatory sentencing, which I disagree with. It ought to be, the sentence ought to be appropriate to the individual and to the crime, not a mandatory sentencing. And that falls disproportionately on minorities by
For
far.
$150 a day cost to contain one.
Wonderful, thank you. I believe Amanda has another question.
Yes, I have a question for Mr. Perry. In exchange for their bailouts, should Wall Street bankers be required to patrol the U.S.-Mexico border for 3 months every year?
Wow, that's a great question. It's actually a great idea. I think they should have to do a lot more than that, actually, in exchange for their bailouts. I think they'd be getting off too easy just doing that. And they should only have to do it in the summertime, by the way, just with one bottle of Arrowhead water to last them all day. How about that?
More regulation on it, yeah. Ms. Gonzalez, I feel like that's probably something that you wouldn't agree with.
Well, the border would be gone anyways, so you have that. But white collar crime, I think people who are getting that ain't right. The bailouts, that's no good. So white collar crime is something I think we really need to take a look at because that's where the real criminals are.
Mr. Benjamin, how do you feel about that idea?
The folks that have been caught are just the tip of the iceberg because these are essentially so-called victimless crimes. There isn't a body, there isn't a chain of evidence, and in many cases, people are getting away with what I guess could be called murder in a financials. So I think that would be a pretty light sentence. It would have to be something a little more substantial than that.
The shame about it is some of the banking bailouts wasn't white collar crime at all. We just basically said, okay, bankers, you knew what you're doing is wrong. We've kind of gone there. You've managed to cash out, and now you don't have anything to worry about. We're going to bail you out. Where we're not going to bail out Mr. Joe homeowner or Miss Jane homeowner.
Mr. Skelley, one of another thing that you've mentioned in your plan is that you would like to see the creation of a sort of candidate school, a national candidate school. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, certainly. I found that, for instance, Arizona is probably the only place where we could have this many candidates that are local running for president. I found that there's an extremely tiny sliver of the population that draws, say, $20 million so that they can start a campaign. I feel we should put an excise tax on all the political contributions and then create a kitty whereby we use the money as a college to educate people, to bring them up to speed to the point where they could become a president of the United States. Get back to anyone has a chance at being president.
Bollander, you're
Well,
nodding your head.
I back Charles because he's my partner in the masterminds. But a big, strong item is that us as we have some great minds here on this panel, some great minds. And I could see half of us going all the way. but
Don't try to butter us
we
up.
have roadblocks in front of us. The roadblocks is that our political parties, Republican, Democrats, make it so that we're not known. We're always dark horse, and we're put aside. The newspaper article here, again, why are these 4 people constantly pounded away being run on the Republican ticket? So in effect, we have a civil rights violations against each of us and all the dark horse candidates across America, and we're suing the Republicans and Democrats and planning to go all the way to the Supreme Court if we must do for almost $110 million plus our rights restored.
Ms. Gonzalez, tell us about some of the difficulties you have had running for office.
Well, there's a lot of problems with the system, and the system is broken, which is why it is the way that it is. But it takes a lot of money, so we can really understand why millionaires and billionaires are all over the place and why they're in the paper as much as they are. Just to even run a campaign, to spend the time to do that. And we're trying to work too. Some of us have been laid off. It's just virtually impossible to run any kind of campaign. And to be a woman, there are a bunch of different standards. You know, people who are saying, "Oh, can we see you in a swimsuit now?" And like I said earlier, people saying, I don't trust somebody as young as you. Are you old enough to run? You know, all these things that they seem little day-to-day interactions, but they're really embedded into the structure, and it makes people shy away from wanting to be president. I was telling someone earlier, there's a really great documentary called Misrepresentation, and it shows that young girls about 5 to 13 are asked if they want to run for president, and almost everyone raises their hand. And then after that, it drops off to like a very low percentage. So the media, all kinds of things are complicit in that. And so there are just a lot of issues, but the socioeconomic status is a huge thing. It takes tons of money just to play with the media.
Mr. Terr, this is what, your 3rd political party you've been a part of?
3rd or 4th, I can't remember. I just meant to make the point last night when somebody, a candidate who's not here tonight, was complaining about the high fees of entering other races, that I appreciate that the state of Arizona, there was no cost. I thought it was ridiculously easy to get involved. I think maybe Sarah's been a more serious candidate than I have and therefore has encountered more problems. But I've thought it was a great opportunity, and I feel that it's wide open. And if I had the proper message to reach people, which I do, by the way, a chicken in every garage, a chicken in every garage, if you don't mind my providing my own comedy. I really think you should leave the comedy to the professionals, if I may say so. Anyway, I think it's been ridiculously easy, and I appreciate the state of Arizona making it so wide open.
Mr. Dean, thoughts on running for office and the troubles of being a dark horse candidate?
You know, this has been a strange experience. It's built some passion in me. You know, a couple of years ago, I woke up to SB 1070. I woke up to Jan. I woke up to Sheriff Arpaio. I woke up to Russell Pierce, and just said, "This is bad. We got to get out there and do something." And that we can do. We can do. This was easy. It cost me no money, no signatures, no nothing. I didn't even have to show an ID. So we can do things if we do them.
Sir, you did have to show an ID.
I did. I always get racially profiled at the state building here in Tucson. That was the 2nd time I got racially profiled. But, you know, it's what we've come to expect with even before SB 1070. And again, people will be like, "Oh, whatever, it was just a small thing." But those things add up.
Mr. Perry, do you have thoughts on the issue?
Yeah, I think Project White House 2012 is great. I'd like to thank Jim Nintzel. It's so great. It's so great that it's so easy in Arizona because it allowed somebody like me to actually participate. I got a shout out on the Rachel Maddow show from doing this. Admittedly, it was just because of the novelty thing with the name, but I've gotten like radio coverage and press coverage, mostly in Maricopa County for some reason that I wouldn't have otherwise got, man, just a little guy like me. So I'm getting my ideas out there like we're doing right now. That to me is participating in your democracy, even on the small level that we're doing that. I think that is pretty cool.
Yeah, I really think that's important. I think what we need to do and what everyone here is doing is changing the landscape. And
I'm gonna have to stop you there. I think we're running down for like the last seconds of this program, but I do appreciate you chiming in at the last minute.
Occupy politics.
I would like to give you guys all a round of applause for joining us tonight, and it takes a lot to put yourself out there and run for president. I'd like to thank everybody at Access Tucson again. This has been a great experience for me and for Amanda. Thank you for coming here as well today.
Enjoyed it.
And I believe we're going to be running the credits in a moment. And good luck. The election day is on February 28th. I hope our viewers go and vote and may consider one of our 7 wonderful candidates from tonight. Thank you again.